Hi, I would like to welcome everybody to this amazing interview that we're about to have. And I know that there are lots of people out there like me that are always looking for these good insights, especially when it comes to taxes and keeping your money in your pocket. So what this interview is going to be all about today is about people who are ready to be their own boss. I mean, who doesn't dream about getting to be your own boss? And so, or maybe that's just me, but we're going to talk about that. So this information today, it's going to be information that's going to help you discover how to make better choices for your future. And I think it's really going to inspire you to be interactive with your family because you're going to get excited about the stuff that we're going to share. And it's going to boost your confidence to know some insider secrets. And then we're going to finish with some simple things at the end of the interview that you can take away to have some huge positive impacts, you know, that take action stuff. Like it's not just going to be a good interview. We're going to give you some cool things to do. And, you know, I was really pleased to meet Tatiana, and I cannot wait to give you access to her today as our expert guest. And, you know, you all out there, you have a desire to be educated as much as possible when it comes to keeping your money and not overpaying your taxes. And so I know that you're going to need the information from today's interview. So Tatiana, she is a fellow author with her new book, Dream Bold, Start Smart. And Tatiana helps visionaries have a bigger impact on the world. So we all need more of that. And so let me just go ahead and give you a more formal introduction because Tatiana is pretty awesome. So Tatiana, she is a mom of two. That's enough right there. She's the author of Dream Bold, Start Smart. She is the founder of a boutique CPA firm, Linza Advisors. Tatiana was a runner-up in the global 2018 Firm of the Future contest by Intuit. And basically, she is a learning junkie and a tax geek. And she's sharing inspirational client stories, case studies, and lessons today that we can learn from. So Tatiana has extensive experience as a communicator, AKA mom, a business owner, and a writer. So Tatiana, welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you. And can you just kind of tell us a little bit about who you are and, you know, what are some of your core values?
Thanks so much for having me on, Tara. I'm really happy to be here and to share my vision. And I want to change the world. Some of my core values are really helping small business owners, which is the majority of U.S., I guess, employer. The biggest employer in the U.S. is the mom and pop shop. And that's why U.S. tax code is geared towards small businesses, and there are provisions in there to save the most money, to take advantage of credits and other things that are out there for you. So my core value is bringing all of those savings to the small business owner so that they can keep more of their money. That's after they've already started the business and they create profitability paths. I'm helping turn that profit into more money for them.
Mm-hmm. So I love that you're saying that because that is obviously what I try to work to as a financial planner. I work with my CPAs, so I'm glad I know you because it's all about, it's not how much you make anymore, it's how much you get to keep. And so having this interview is really important. And those core values, you know, just with integrity and taking care of your family. So I love that you said that because I think we're the same, that we both want to add value to people's lives. So our interview today, it's about being a visionary. And Tatiana, I'm so glad that you're going to be sharing these tips for success. And I want to have just a couple hints, though, for folks listening, is this interview isn't just for business owners, because this interview is going to provide insight for everyone, you know, aunts, uncles, grandparents, because we are all, a lot of us, mom and pop businesses. And so the whole family is involved. And because this information is just, Tatiana's got some exciting stuff she's going to share. I already know because I know what I'm going to talk to her about. But you're going to be able to share it with your friends and coworkers, so it's going to be a real win-win. And, you know, here's the great part about getting education from an expert. You're not just passing on information that you heard about, but you can't really vouch for it. You're going to get it direct from the horse's mouth today. So really excited. So Tatiana, after reading your background, it's clear that you have this full life spectrum, all the way from your work and your family to your business. How do you just talk to us about that? Because that's a lot. And I think that's what people want to know about is how do you have a family and a business?
I wasn't always managing all of that kind of successfully because just like any other small business owner, I was on the path to working a lot and, managing family kind of around my work. And it's very typical for especially accountants because technology has created this commoditization of an accounting profession. And, we value an accountant based on how much they charge us for our tax return. And that's not the real value of an accountant. There's so much more to that. But because of this commoditization, and I'm kind of starting from kind of from the early years, because of this commoditization, that relationship accountant client stopped being really beneficial for both sides. Because if you think about it, for an accountant to make a good living, they have to take on 300, 400, 500 clients. And if that's the relationship, then I, as an accountant, don't have an hour to spend on your taxes or on your business to say, oh, we should do this to save you more money. There's just no room for that. There's no time for that. So because of that, I was also, when I started my practice, I got pregnant and I quit the firm that I was working for because I needed more time. And I figured, I don't want my baby growing inside me to stress out. And because it was right at the, at the beginning of tax season that I got pregnant. And I was like, I don't want to put her through it. So I've already had some clients on the side that were doing bookkeeping and accounting and controller type work and CFO type work. But I quit and I started also my practice, tax returns and tax advisory. But for a number of years, like I said, my family was kind of built around my business, and it's not something that I wanted. So I ended up creating something that I didn't want. And a couple of years ago, just about at the time that I became a runner-up for that Firm of the Future contest, I realized that it's, I'm getting busier and I'm really busy during tax season, but my bank account doesn't reflect that increase, proportionately. Right. So I thought something had to change, and I hired a business coach. I joined a tax planning group where I was taught to proactively save people money on tax and build value for it. And I started doing that, and that really transformed my practice so that right now, off season, so not in tax season, and which is now. So I finished all of my work for tax purposes 2 weeks ago, and I went on vacation last week, where other traditional accountants are still working. I work off season 2 days a week on my business, and I was able to write a book, edit it throughout last year with kids in the home because of pandemic, with husband in the hospital because of other issues and things. And I really became much more efficient, but also much more mindful of my own time and effort. And for me, it's not about money, it's about time. Do I want to spend this time to save X? I don't know. But do I want to give away free time to a prospective client who may never work with me? I don't. So valuing your own time is what really prompted me to really have it all, if that's the corrective word or expression even that's applicable, because nobody really has it all when it comes to a full-time business and a full-time motherhood.
Right.
So it's very hard. It's always a juggle. It's always a struggle. But it's possible to build a business that's built around your life. And that's really what I want. And the sooner you realize it, the sooner you can get there.
Tatiana, I love everything that you've said I'm going to remind myself, like when I started my business, one of the things that's really important for me is my horses, and I compete. And so Monday is horse day. So I meet with clients Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but I blocked that time out. And it was a little scary because I was afraid, like, oh my gosh, all the clients I'm going to miss out on because I'm protecting that time. But actually what I have found is that it works out fine. And people like that because they like to know that you have interests and hobbies and do things, and having that protection of your time that goes both ways, because you need to protect your time as a business owner, but then don't you find your clients also appreciate it too, because you're not wasting their time either.
Yeah, absolutely. And I found the same thing. So one of the summers 3 or 4 years ago, my kids, I generally wouldn't send kids because when they were little, it didn't make sense to a camp, for example. And I didn't have the need to have them, full-time in camp. I could work around them in the summers because generally for a traditional accountant, summers are very slow.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have a lot of work. But what ended up happening, because my calendar was wide open, I would schedule, a call on a Wednesday, a call on a Tuesday, and then and a Thursday and a Friday, one call, a day. And then I'm busy the whole week. So I can't take my kids on a trip to a farm somewhere or do anything because I'm always tied to this calendar. So I've been through business coaching, and what I was taught was structured weeks. And now if you need me to work on your stuff, it's going to be Thursday or maybe Monday afternoon. Those are my 2 working days for my business. The rest of the time, Fridays, I connect with other people. Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I edit my book or record a podcast or create content. That's just the way it is. And it works really well.
I love it. And so I'm going to jump into my next question I'm going to ask you about how do you price your product and service using price psychology? And I just want the people listening to understand. So the business owners, you need to understand how to do this. But for the people out there who are clients, it helps you to understand how people get paid, because then that makes you understand you're not getting taken advantage of or what's going on, because there's a reason why things happen. But so here's my question. How do you price your product or service using price psychology? Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Price psychology is actually one of my favorite topics because everyone thinks about how much they should charge. Every business owner, every even person, thinking about starting a business, the first question usually is, what would the price be? Right. Because that, sales are a lifeblood of the business. So you have to understand how to price. And oftentimes we're pulled into these arbitrarily set prices. Oh, my competitor is charging that, so I should be more competitive and charge less. It doesn't work like that, because their business is not your business. And I believe that every person is unique, and that every individual approach to pricing is unique and should be unique. Because think about it, Apple doesn't care how much Microsoft charges for their computers or processors or whatever operating systems. They don't care. They have their own brand, they have their own mission statement, and they have their own pricing that's through the roof. But it's, you can't tell Apple how much to charge. So when I started my business, I had the same issue. I didn't know what to charge. So I talked to a colleague of mine, a mentor, who was kind of retiring from the accounting industry. And he said, well, come up with a rate that includes your overhead, so your insurance, your software, whatever, plus the time that you are willing to, the amount that you're willing to sell your time for. And that's, multiplied by the number of hours it takes you to complete a tax return. And I did that for a little bit, for a couple of years. And what I ended up having was charging people very little. And when you charge people little for this tax return, they expect you to answer questions throughout the year, to jump on a quick call, to talk to their financial planner, all of that for free. So that's what I said. When I said that I was getting busier, but my bank account didn't reflect that proportionally, that's something that didn't make sense to me. So in 2019, I joined this price psychology training, and there was a boot camp of 2 hours of content. So in the 2 hours, my mind was completely blown. And I learned that apparently we as people, human beings, when we see a price that's big visually, our brain perceives it as a higher price. When it's longer, same thing. When there is a dollar sign, our brain perceives it as a higher price. So think about this. When you tell someone my coaching program costs $7,000, that's a lot of money. But when you say $7,000, it's not that big anymore. And that's just our brain perceiving that price as much higher. And that's why you see the $199, $299, prices for retail industry. They use price psychology really well on that. There's so much more to price psychology, and I can go deeper on different techniques. But the bottom line is, your price cannot be based on selling your time, because if you're selling your time, there's always a limit to how much you can make. And there was a very influential accountant. He actually hasn't been doing accounting for decades, but he's been kind of a mentor to other accountants. And he said at a QuickBooks Connect conference, he said, you're not selling time, you're selling access to your brain.
No, I love that you're saying that, because I heard the similar thing is you don't want to want to get away from trading hours for dollars.
Yeah.
You're owning a business so that you can have time. And if you have to work all the time, then you just have a big job for yourself. And I love that. And I think that's just a foot stomp point, because people tend to undercharge because someone isn't paying you for the hour it took you to do it. They're paying you for the 20 years you spent learning how to do it.
That's right. That's right. That's absolutely right.
Yeah. Yeah. So that is a huge, huge thing. And so we might come back to that, but I want to make sure we get all of our points in today because you have so many interesting things. So this next thing I'd like to ask you about is, how do you lower your taxes by tackling them proactively throughout the year, as opposed to waiting till like at the very end of the year? And you kind of started to touch on that about, how there's the tax season and then you have the whole year. So how do you be proactive about that? I love being proactive.
So the traditional accounting model is, basically reporting after the fact. And that's why it's that model of working with an accountant is doomed. And eventually it's going to phase out or like become a really small part of the industry. And the reason is that once the year is over, there isn't that much that you can do to lower your tax bill.
Right.
I think that a great red flag for someone listening or watching could be, if you get a surprise at tax time, you need a tax planner. So typically there are strategies. There's a number of strategies, and there are strategies that traditional accountants are not even aware of. I mean, when I went through the training, I didn't know half of those strategies. I didn't even know they existed. And where do you get the time to incorporate them for 300 clients? It's just impossible. So an example of that, and actually before I tell you an example of that, I do want to say that I believe that business is personal. And that motto I carry to my practice, because in order for me to help you proactively lower your taxes, I have to talk to you. I have to know where you are. Do you have kids? Do you have animals? What are you passionate about? What are you looking to do? Do you want to sell this business to you? What it is that you're dealing with, so that I can create income shifting strategies to kids, to relatives that you support, or whatever the combination is, so that I can apply entity restructuring. A lot of accountants think about one entity. So if a client comes and says, well, what should I be? Should I be an S Corp? They say, okay, you should be an S Corp. And that's it. But there's so much more to it. Right now, with the tax laws and tax changes that we've experienced, creating a structure of maybe 2, 3, or 4 entities, depending on your personal situation, is what's going to save you the most amount of money. And you will get a return even after the extra filing fees and accountant fees and so on. So there's so much more to it, but you can only make that happen while the year is still operating. Once the year's over, there's not much you can do.
Right. Yeah. And it just reminds me, like, that was one of my first instances about 10 years ago, is I had a family friend that just prepared our taxes, and we had a couple of rental properties, and we got a couple more. And so we were introduced to a CPA that specialized in real estate. And he's like, well, we can do it the way it was done, but I've got some strategies that are going to save you a lot of money. And it was amazing because it's all legal, right? It's not like there's only one way. And that's what makes taxes so complicated, is that there are many ways to get things done. And of course, they're all legal, but there's ways you can save yourself money, and there's ways you can just pay more money than you have to. And I love that you had, sharing an example about that, about how do you tackle that as a business owner. And like, even as a financial planner, that's one of the simple ideas I introduce my clients to, is the way the tax code is in this country. Even if you're a W-2 job worker, if you can own a rental property or have some kind of a small business at home, it opens up this whole world of things that you can deduct. Like, every person in America should have their own business. I don't care if it's just owning a rental property, because of the advantages that exist.
Absolutely.
And they're legal. Like, like my mom is the worst. She's like, well, I don't want to go to jail. I'm like, oh my gosh, Mom, I would not send you to jail.
It's actually, it's funny that you say that, because in my book, when I was writing my first draft, I actually quoted a client who says, I don't want to go to jail. And my editor said, what is this thing with the jail? And I'm like, I'm getting those comments from clients.
Well, there's a big fear of what you don't know about taxes and the government coming for you. And so it's really interesting. I liked with one CPA I worked with, he's like, well, I'm very comfortable to tiptoe right up to the line, but I'm not going to cross it. And I'm like, okay, that's good. But well, and another funny thing, and you're unusual because a friend of mine was a CPA. He's like, we're CPAs because we don't like to talk to people.
That's absolutely true.
So I love that you have this book and that you're reaching out and helping educate people. So, and I guess that kind of makes me think, like, what made you decide, besides having the time, that you wanted to really start sharing this information with more people than you could just do with your clients one-on-one?
Well, first of all, I think that if you lift up small businesses, you'll lift up the entire world, because small businesses are what make the world economy, what really create an impact in the world. And that's what I wanted to help build. I believe in a small business, especially women-owned businesses, but not, it doesn't have to be. Just small businesses in general are very powerful. And what I've realized, I stopped working with startups. I stopped working with businesses that are barely making ends meet, because usually they don't have a budget for someone like me. Yes, right. There's always value that I can create, but the budget was a concern. So, but then I kept getting clients, prospective clients, where I would, spend an hour with them, look at their stuff, go over their taxes, their questionnaire, personal information. And I would see tax saving opportunities and mistakes and wasted money and just wasted, like, anxiety, perpetual anxiety for those people. And I wanted, I thought, what if they could start better? People who need me most can't afford me, because they're starting out, they don't have a budget or whatever. They're the ones who need the expertise. So I wanted to fill that void and write a book that will give them a roadmap on how to skip the anxiety, skip the mistakes that I see most commonly, and really build a strong business.
I love it. So that brings me to the next question, and you just kind of led it right into it, is how do you start a business and not fail? I love that idea.
So I'm very fortunate to work with clients that are visionaries. And one of them, and I have great relationships with my clients. And one of them said to me once, maybe it was a couple of years ago, he said, Tatiana, accountants don't start businesses, visionaries do. And that really stuck with me, because it's the truth. And the reason that accountants don't start businesses left and right is because we're numbers people. We run the numbers. It doesn't make sense. Okay, moving on to something else. That's why, an accounting business is more predictable. There's no real risk in it. There is a little risk, but, you can always buy insurance on that. But if you're doing a great job, there's not real risk of losing money or, going out of business or anything like that. But accountants rarely start other businesses for that reason. We run the numbers and we know immediately, oh, that's not going to work. Whereas visionaries start a business and their vision, their idea carries them through, ups and downs. And that's where sometimes you can have a down that's forever down. Sometimes you can fail. So the way to start a business and not fail is to run the numbers and know exactly your initial costs, your investment, if you're starting a physical business, physical store, your security deposit, your first month rent, your ongoing operating expenses. Even if you're working there by yourself, how much do you have to bring in sales to not have to borrow to operate? Those are some of the basic things, and they don't require, masters in mathematics. It's just some basic algebra, adding and subtracting, or multiplying maybe, or dividing. So some basic stuff. And that's a really first foundational step to not failing when you start a business.
I love that you're having that, because one of the things I remember looking at early on was I was wanting to start a horse boarding business, and I had run all the numbers and I was good to go. And then someone brought up the point, well, have you looked at insurance? And then when I looked at the cost of insurance, I'm like, well, that doesn't work. And so it's really hard when you have this thing that you want to do and the way you want to take care of people, but you have to include all those little ankle biters. We call that in the Air Force. that are going to get you. So, okay, so your book is definitely going to be a must read. And I just want to take this minute to remind anybody who's listening or watching this, if you have any questions or comments, definitely post them in the chat below, or you can also email me and get some answers, because this is really important stuff. So, gosh, Tatiana, I'm trying to think about, can you just talk a little bit more about the psychology and how that ties together? Because you're a visionary, you're ready to start this business, you're excited about it. What would be like one more thing in price psychology that you need to be thinking about when you're starting a business that kind of catches people?
Yeah, the most important thing, I think, when you're just starting is to develop a 3-level service package or whatever offer. Realistically speaking, every business is a product business, because you can package service into a product and a package and so on. But typically, specifically for software and service businesses, having 3 packages is important, and I'll explain why. For product businesses, it's also possible to apply that psychology. But before I explain the three packages and kind of why it's so important, look at, like, Apple used to have 2 options on their main screen when you were buying a Mac. 21-inch and 27-inch. Then about a year ago, I didn't notice when exactly. I just looked at it and boom, it's 3. They removed the 2 screen sizes, and now they've been offering 3. A little lower processor speed, a little higher. And that's very powerful, because when you are starting a business, having 3 options allows you to price discriminate. What that means is, let's say, there will always be people who want an all-inclusive resort. There will always be people who will want everything. Why not give them everything? Why not charge them more and give them everything?
Right.
But there will always be people who cannot afford even your middle package, your standard service, but they still want to really, really want to work with you. For them, an entry package, kind of your walk-away package, where if they pay a penny less, you would walk away and you would not take the client, would be a great idea. So why not offer 3 levels? The reason it's the kind of the power of 3 is because when it's 2, people feel cornered. They feel forced to make a choice, and it's a yes or no, and often they end up not choosing at all. When it's more than 3, people are overwhelmed and don't know what's the best option. So if you notice, many software companies actually do give you a middle option, and it says like best value at the top somewhere. So knowing all of that, and knowing that 60% of your customers statistically will purchase your middle option, when you create those benefits, when you add some basic benefits that everybody gets, great. Then the next batch of benefits only the top 2 get, and then the next batch only the top package gets. That allows you to first price discriminate and offer people what they want, but also it allows you to price your packages and set expectations with clients with your target profit in mind. So knowing that 60% of your people will be buying middle package, you have to price it with your target profit in mind. What do you want to make from this business? Is it, I don't know, $500 per client or whatever it is? That's the most powerful technique that I've seen and that I've successfully used in my business and my clients' businesses. But that allows you to really capture a really, a much bigger market share, but also offer people what they want.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that, because that was even more than I expected. So, man, this interview has just flown by. So what I'd like to do right now is just recap quickly what we've learned, because Tatiana, you just have shared so much. I already have taken some notes for myself as well. So I'm not going to be able to recap everything, but that's why you can go back and listen to this. But we've learned about how you're going to pursue the passion in life if you want to start a business. So get ready to write these down if you're taking notes. So this part about price psychology, the three different levels, that makes total sense, because now that you're explaining it, I've seen that so many times, and it's worked on me. So I love that you kind of, like, you gave us a peek behind the curtain of like what's actually happening there. And I love that transparency that clearly you have that in your business, and people that work with you are going to get that transparency. And that's something I find is very important with people, is people just want to know what they're getting. So thank you for sharing that with us. And then you talked about how do we start lowering our taxes? And I really like this because, like, my husband is the worst. He puts it off till the last minute, where I like to get things done early, because that way it's off my plate. I don't like that stress of like trying to get it done. So I really like how you shared about how to be proactive, because the more that you can be proactive and get ahead, I mean, that just makes sense for us business owners. Yeah. And then talking about how to start a business and not fail. You talked about a lot of things, but really stuck with me is you want to like lay it out on that spreadsheet, because it's the thing you're going to do, about that. It's all the other things that you forget about, like overhead and insurance and rent and all those little things that can add up. And next thing you know, you don't have a business anymore. So you shared some amazing things. And so we've talked briefly about the book, but Tatiana, please just tell us a little bit more, like in a sentence or two, about your book, Dream Bold, Start Smart. If someone buys this book, how are they going to use it to help themselves?
This is a book for you if you have a business idea or want to turn your side hustle into a real business and actually make money doing what you love. It's a roadmap to teach you all things money, numbers, and taxes in plain English.
I love it. Okay, so this is no kidding. This isn't just a book for light reading. People are going to actually be able to take action and do something. So I love it. Yeah. So I am very excited to hear about all the amazing success that people are going to have with your new educational book and your motivational outlook, because you're not just a how-to, you're a visionary. And I love that. So, this new savvy is going to be tremendously important for everybody who's out there thinking about starting a business or in that process. And you can share it with your friends and coworkers. So remember, Tatiana's book is available on Amazon. Is that right?
Yeah.
And you can also contact Tatiana directly with more questions, and you can reach her at her website, Tatiana Tsoir. Did I say that right? .com?
Tsoir. It's Tsoir. I have a shortcut. TalkToTatiana.com. It forwards to that. TalkToTatiana.com, and you'll see it also in the comments below. So I would encourage everybody listening to today's show to reach out, get Tatiana's book, go visit her website, because I can tell you, as a financial planner, you need Tatiana on your team. I'm going to see if she can be part of mine. Absolutely, for sure. So don't forget to share this interview with your friends who may have not been able to listen in today. And I'm really looking forward to sharing a must-know topic with you next time. Can't wait to hear about your success. Bye, everyone. Thanks so much.